Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm so pleased you've joined me. In this session, you're going to learn about Azure AD Authentication Method Policies and all the different types of authentication that are possible. You'll learn what they are, what's new, and how to manage them. This is really important because Microsoft is going to depreciate the legacy policies for MFA and Self-Service-Password-Reset in January 2024. I hear you saying, what are legacy policies? You're in the right place to learn. I suggest you watch the whole video, but if you're time limited, watch the intro and then dive in and out of the different authentication methods. There are clear links to the different sections in the description below. To keep up to date and keep learning, please subscribe to my channel. If you subscribe, I will see that you appreciate the content and it will encourage me to do more. Okay, I want to start off by thinking about authentication. Why do we authenticate? We authenticate or sign in to prove who we are. We could be authenticating for access to applications. And there are many further checks that will go on to see if we're authorized to access the application. Are we assigned to the app? Have we met conditional access requirements? Now, that's a biggie. Conditional access is core to Zero Trust, and Microsoft are doing a lot of work on enhancing conditional access. So on a very regular basis, if you look at conditional access, you'll find additional settings. I'm going to do a video on that very soon. Do you have the correct licensing? That could be another check that goes on. Okay, so authenticating for applications. But we can also authenticate to provide a second factor for MFA. So we might sign in with our password and then we could be prompted to provide a second factor. Effectively, we are authenticating with that second factor. And it could be that we receive an SMS. It could be that we're using the Microsoft Authenticator app, which is the preferred way of doing it. Another reason that we might be authenticating is because we are trying to do a self-service password reset. And as part of that requirement, the user has to prove who they are. And we do that through an authentication method. Why don't you come and join me in the cloud? Okay, I'm going to start off here in portal.azure.com, and this is the one-stop shop for doing everything in Azure, such as creating virtual machines, creating key vaults, managing your subscription, and so on. I'm going to go to Active Directory. And again, this is still in portal.azure.com, but it's just the Active Directory management part of the portal. But I'm going to go to Microsoft Entra. Because Entra is a new portal. It is entra.microsoft.com. And this is where Microsoft have gathered together the identity and access management components. So Active Directory, permissions management, verified IDs, workload identities, governance, it's all done through the Entra Admin Center. I'm going to go to Azure Active Directory. And I'm going to go straight off and find, and this is always a bit of hunt the thimble. Where's it gone? Well, under Protect and Secure, what we can see is authentication methods. So I'm going to choose the authentication methods, and you'll see a number of them. FIDO2 security keys, Microsoft Authenticator, SMS in preview, temporary access pass, and so on. If we compare that to what was available in 2020, what you'd have seen is very, very few. So there's the FIDO2 security key, we've got the Microsoft Authenticator, but only for passwordless sign-in, not for saying use the Authenticator app. It was for password. And then we've got text messaging, and again, the text messaging was for a very specific use, which we'll see shortly. What's happened over time is more and more has been brought into here. Now, You said, well, we could always do SMS. We could always do, set up the Authenticator app. Where were they set? Well, they were set in what we now call legacy policies. And one of those legacy policies was under MFA. Well, we looked under Protect and Secure. You don't see MFA, but we scroll down a little bit. We've got Show More. And one thing I quite like about the portal is if I go and there's multi-factor authentication. If I favorite it, it's now available in my favorites. So I can actually come up here and I can see multi-factor authentication here. So I'm going to click on that. And what we've got is the ability to do additional cloud-based multi-factor authentication. Click on that. And what we see is the legacy policy for MFA. So call to a phone, text message to a phone. So that's an SMS MFA. Notification through a mobile app. So that's a push notification to a mobile app. Verification code from a mobile app. And that could be a one-time passcode. Could be from the Authenticator app, but equally well could be from the Google Authenticator or a hardware token. Now, these have been moved into the new Authentication Method Policies, with one exception. Hardware tokens still have to be set in here, but expect that to migrate in the not too distant future. So let's go back again into the Entra portal, and what I want to do is actually come in here again into Active Directory, scroll down, and under Protect and Secure I can find Password Reset. And if we look at authentication methods, what we can see are these are the authentication methods, how a user proves who they are for doing a password reset. Once again, these have migrated into the new authentication method policies. So this is the legacy policy we're currently looking at. The one thing that hasn't migrated are security questions. Okay, so migrations are coming along really well. Let's go back again now to authentication methods. And if we look under authentication methods, we can see here that we've actually got in January 2024, the legacy multi-factor and self-service password reset policies will be depreciated. So by then we need to migrate everything into the new authentication method policies. How do we do that? Well, we've got migration settings. So here we've got pre-migration, and pre-migration, everything is done using the legacies. So in terms of SMS, in terms of self-service password reset. In the new authentication method policies, we're basically just dealing with authentication, like a FIDO2 security key, a temporary access pass, and so on. If we go to migration in progress, what it does is it respects settings in legacy, and it also respects settings in the new authentication methods. So for instance, if you chose SMS in legacy, then SMS would work. If you choose SMS in authentication methods, they're overlapping. Well, it's said in one of them, so SMS will work. If I want SMS not to work, I need to make sure it's removed from both policies. Once your migration is complete, you choose this option, and then the legacy policies for both multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset are ignored. So we're just into using the new authentication methods. Now, at the moment, as I said, we need hardware tokens have to come out of the legacy MFA settings, and security questions have to come out of the legacy settings. But by the time January 2024 comes along, hopefully everything will be in the new authentication methods. Let's look at what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is actually go through each of these methods. I'm not going to go into details of setting up some of these things. I'm going to do those in separate videos. But what I want to do is just talk about the different methods and show you the user experience for those methods. Now, something that's you'll notice the target for all these methods at the moment is group. But if I click on certificate-based authentication, what I've got is I've got John Williams and I've got a group here called auth cert auth, as in certificate authentication. Now you can only add groups, but previously you could add individual users. It still respects individual users if they're already there, but now you have to add the groups. So remember, January 2024, we have to take all the settings you've got in the legacy policies and migrate them to the authentication methods. But before we get started, let me just explain how I've set this up. So if I look at FIDO2 security keys, I see that they're applied for a group called auth-FIDO2. If I look at Microsoft Authenticator, I've got auth-MAA, as in Microsoft Authenticator, -push. That's a group that will get push notifications. I've got auth-MAA -passwordless. That's a group which will get passwordless authentication using the Microsoft Authenticator app. And what I've done is I have really limited my users to being in one of these groups, not multiple groups. So our individual users that we'll be using for the demos are going to have individual methods that they can use. And I thought that was the best way to try and explain this. Now, when it comes to setting up authentication methods, some methods will be set up just in here under the Authentication Method Policies. Some will require further work to be done by an administrator, and some methods will require the user to register something. So for instance, a user will have to register a FIDO2 key. A user will have to register the Authenticator app. Anyway, we'll see that as we go along. Welcome to this section on FIDO2 security keys. We're in authentication methods, and I'm going to go to the method to set up this security key. So if I click on that, we can see that we got security keys enabled and they're targeted. We could target them to all users or a selected group. I've got them targeted to the auth-FIDO2 group. If I used all users, I could actually exclude. Well, even if I used a targeted group, I could still exclude a group of users. So that's a possibility, a little bit like conditional access and the ability to exclude when setting up conditional access. So if I go to configure, what I can see is the first thing is allow self-service setup. That has to be on, otherwise the users will not be able to register their keys, and the users have to be involved in this process. Enforce attestation and enforce key restrictions, well, they need a little bit more knowledge, because what is an attestation? What is an AA GUID? If you're interested in that, watch my video entitled Azure AD FIDO2 Temporary Access Pass, that's as in tap, and phishing. I like to call it Azure AD, dogs, FIDO, dancing, tap dancing, and phishing as in luring your target in. When it comes to using a FIDO2 key, we can go completely passwordless with it, or we can actually use it as a step-up authentication method. So let's actually look at this. I've got my account as the target, and in our particular environment, my account does not need MFA. It could need MFA, but I've got it set up so it doesn't. So I'm going to sign in here, and I've signed in using a password. I'm John Brown. Now, John Brown has FIDO2 keys registered for him. I need to update information, and the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to be prompted to step up my authentication to multi-factor, and I can do that with my security key. So I click on that, and it's saying give me a PIN, which is okay, and then it's saying touch the key to prove you're actually here. So I've now touched the key to prove I'm here, and I'm in to the security information. I've got 2 security keys in here. I can delete them. I can find out more information about them. Oh, look, and there's that AA GUID. Again, come back, watch the other video to find out exactly what it means. I can actually add a sign-in method, and the only method available to this particular user is a security key. I could add an additional security key, but I'm not going to here. Now, I've just done step-up authentication. So if I go to another application, I've already signed in. I've got strong authentication. If I sign in here now with OpenID, what I can see is I have an ARM claim, and that is the Authentication Method Reference claim, which is set to password, FIDO, and MFA. You remember I started off with a password. I then elevated my strength of my authentication using the FIDO key, and then now I've got MFA is seen in there as well. This app is an app I created for my Identity Masterclass. And it's a masterclass I run online. I also run it around the world as well. So if you're interested in getting into lots and lots of detail, it's a good class. Let's just close that off. And now let's go and experience something slightly differently. I'm going to go back to OIDC, and I'm just going to change over my key. So I'm going to just change to a different security key, and I'm going to go and sign in with OpenID. It's going to go in as John, and I'm going to say other ways to sign in, and I'm going to use my security key here. Now there's a difference here. What it's doing is saying touch the key. Didn't ask me for a PIN. I'm touching the key, and it signed me straight in. So in one go, I proved I was here. And how was I authenticated against the key? By using a biometric. And what we can see in the ARM parameter is we've got FIDO and we've got MFA. Welcome to this section on Microsoft Authenticator. Once again, we're in the Authentication Method Policies. We choose the Microsoft Authenticator, and we can see that it's enabled and it's targeted to 2 different groups. One group is going to receive push notifications, and the other group, which is called the passwordless group, is going to receive passwordless and push notifications. This particular setting started off its life with just enabling a user to go passwordless. Where did we set up the authenticator for push notifications? We did it in the legacy MFA policy, but now we're doing both within here. If we look at configuration, what we can see is that we've got OTP, which we'll come back to in a second. We've got the ability to have push notifications with number matching, which makes life a lot more secure. We can also put in the name of the application, and we can show some geographic information. And I've got all those settings currently turned on. So let's go and experience this. And I'm going to start off with a user, Don. And what Don is going to do is going to go to My Accounts. No requirement for MFA on My Accounts. So we're going to sign in to My Accounts, and he's in. Now, if he wants to update his security information, because he's already got the authenticator in, he has to perform multi-factor authentication. So we're updating the security info, and we're being prompted. And if we bring up our trusty phone, now it's Don. It's my sign-ins is what we're being asked to authenticate for, and the location is somewhere near Brighton, and we're going to go 80 in there. That's done. Okay, so Don is actually signed in. What he can do is he can delete the authenticator, and the only method that he can add is an authenticator. You know, we've really restricted each of our demo users as to what they can register. Let's go across to OIDC v2 now, and remember he's signed into Azure AD, so he'll keep the same authentication strength to Azure AD. And we go to our OpenID Connect application, and we can see he did a password and he did MFA. So that's in the ARM claim, or the AMR claim rather, the Authentication Method Reference claim. Right, let's go and have a look at a slightly different experience, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to OIDC, which requires MFA, and I'm going to go in this time as Tina. So there's Tina. So we could start off with a password, but she's using passwordless. So it's just saying, please approve this request. Back to the Authenticator, and it's saying Tina, approve, and what's the number? It's 21. Now, because this is passwordless, I'm now being prompted on my phone for a biometric. So I've just put my thumbprint on there, and what we can see down here is that this is showing as RSA and MFA. RSA if we're using cryptography. Let's just close that off, and let's go back and look at our users. And what I want to do is find my user. So we go into all users, and I'm looking for a user called Don, which is there. And if I look at the authentication methods for Don, we can see that he's got the Microsoft Authenticator installed. I'm going to delete that. I'm doing this as an administrator. So he's phoned me up, said he's lost my phone, can you deal with it? And I've done it. So he can no longer use the Authenticator app from that particular phone. Okay, let's go and have Don's experience again. And when we go into My Accounts, remember it's Don, he's going to use a password, we're signing in. Going to update security information. And this time there is no authenticator, so I can add a method. So I'm going to choose the method, and it's going to be the authenticator. Now notice down here there is no ability to use any other type of authenticator. This is for the Microsoft Authenticator. So I'm going to go next on there, next, and it's going to ask me to scan a QR code. So my next job is to bring back my trusty phone, and I'm going to add in here, I'm going to add a work or school account, and I'm going to scan the QR code. So we'll scan that in, hopefully. And that was successful. And what I've got now is my Don has been added back. So I click next on there. And what it's asking me to do is confirm the number. So again, back in here, and I put in 30, and that's set it all up for me. So now I'm completely set up to actually use the authenticator. Let's just sign Don out and sign Don in back again. So we can go in as Don, and we're going in with OpenID Connect and signing in as Don. I can sign in with my password. I'm now being prompted for the second factor, which I can do. However, imagine the situation whereby Don's in a Faraday cage. He's in the data center. He can't use this. There is no other method of actually approving the sign-in request. And that's where we want OTP. So let's cancel that, and let's go back and come back to our authentication methods. Go back into the Microsoft Authenticator configuration and enable OTP. Okay, so let's experience it again. And remember, Don is in the data center, and we're going to sign in, OpenID. We need to supply our password, which we'll do first of all. And then because this app is using multi-factor, we need to approve the sign-in request. We can't, because we're not going to receive push notifications because we're in the data center. And I'm going to go and use a verification code. Right, now if I go across to my trusty app, because I'm not in the data center, it's actually seen it. So I'm going to click done on there and just say, no, it's not me, which gives me the chance of going over here, 574514. So 574514. And that has got me in using a password and MFA through OTP. So that's how I got my second factor, was with OTP. Welcome to the section on SMS for second factor authentication and self-service password reset. I'm in the Azure Methods Policies. Click on here. If we look in here, we've actually got two groups. One which is just using SMS for second factor and also for self-service password reset, and one for sign-in. I'm going to come back to the sign-in in the next section. At the moment, we have Debbie set up for SMS. Let's go and have a look at Debbie's experience. Debbie can come in to the My Accounts and she can choose to sign in with a password. So in she goes with a password, and she can update her security info. And she could add a method, and the method is phone. So although it's called SMS, it's shown here as phone. I'm going to actually cancel that. And what I want to do is close, let's log in again as Debbie, but this time to OIDC v2. And OIDC v2 requires MFA. So it's going to force you to register for MFA. We're going to sign in here, and we're going to go again as Debbie and with her password, and it's saying more information is required. Next on there, and it's asking for a phone number. We're going to go to the United Kingdom, and I will hide this phone number, right, because I don't want to give my phone number away to absolutely everyone. Next on there. And what it's going to do now, it's text me a code. I'm going to enter the code I've just received, which is 017954. Next on there. Again, next. That's done. But as it was an interrupted sign-in process, I've actually gone into the application with multi-factor. So we can see password and MFA. It's as simple as that, and it just works. Welcome to this section on using SMS for first factor sign-in. So once again, I'm in Authentication Method Policies, and I'm going to go to SMS Preview. And we've got a group which is allowed for sign-in. Now, what we could do is we could actually get a user in that group, and the only user in that group is in fact Maria. We could get her to go and register her phone. But the whole idea of this is she is going to use her phone number and the received SMS to sign in. So she doesn't actually need a username, and she doesn't need to remember a password. So it could be for occasional workers. We're going to get the administrator involved, and the administrator is going to go off to all users. And once we got to all users and we've enumerated our users, we're going to choose Maria, and we're going to go down to Authentication Methods. And under Authentication Methods, we're going to add one, and this one is going to be phone number. We're going to set our phone number in there, and we're going to add that. And then because in the Authentication Methods policy, it says this can be used for sign-in, it immediately says this number is ready for SMS sign-in. So let's go and see Maria's experience. I'm going to go to My Account, and I'm going to sign in as Maria. So sign in using another account. And now, who is this person? Well, it's just her phone number. So next on there, and it will say is it a work or school account, so we need to educate on that, and we've now got a code that has been sent to her phone. So let's just put that in. And in fact, this phone number is being used in a number of organizations. So I'm just going to choose XDS Dev down here, which is where Maria is. And I don't want to save that. So I'm going to close that. And she's now signed in to my account. And this is a first factor sign in. She goes to security information. The interesting thing here is that she is blocked from gaining access because it says multi-factor authentication is required. Let's have one other experience for Maria, and let's go against OIDC. And we'll try and go in with her phone number. And a code's been sent. And again, it's asking us where we're from. And it says multi-factor authentication is required and the credential use is not supported. Try signing in with another method. Okay, so we're blocked from doing MFA with this particular type of sign-in. But it could be useful for occasional workers. Welcome to this section on temporary access pass. I'm not going to go into great detail here. If you want to see how to actually create a temporary access pass for an individual user so that they can use it for registering a FIDO2 key, then watch my video, Azure AD FIDO2 Temporary Access Pass and Phishing. For now, I just want to look at it from the user experience. But we start off actually in Authentication Method Policies. And if we look in here, what we've got is, yes, temporary access passes can be used, so they're enabled, and they can be used for members of the AuthTap users group. Now, as I say, there's another piece of work that needs to be done by the administrator, and the administrator has created a tap for Tom. So let's have a look at Tom's experience. We're going to use our application, our OIDC app, and we're going to sign in. And we're going to choose our user, Tom, and he's being asked for a temporary access pass. Now, why might we give Tom a temporary access pass? We might give Tom a temporary access pass because we want him to register a FIDO2 key. And to do that, you need MFA. If we haven't set up MFA for Tom, we could go straight in and get him to register a FIDO2 key by using a tap. Tom might have an Authenticator app, which he's lost. So he's lost his phone or he's left it at home. He can't get in if his only method for MFA is to use the Authenticator app. So we give him a temporary access pass. So let's actually log in with this temporary access pass. So I've got it in my clipboard. Going to go in. And I can see that Tom has come in. He's got a Authentication Methods reference of TAP and MFA. So he's in with strong authentication, so he could register a new phone, he could register a new FIDO2 key, and so on. Okay, that's it. Remember, come back and watch my video on Azure AD, FIDO2, Temporary Access Pass, and Phishing. Welcome to this section on setting up third-party software oath tokens. Once again, we're in the authentication methods, and we can see down here there is a method that deals with these tokens. We're enabled, the tokens are enabled, they're enabled for a target group, and I have a single user in that target group called Derek. So let's go to Derek's experience. So I'm going to go off to my OIDC app, and what we'll do is we'll sign in as Derek. Now remember, this OIDC app requires multi-factor authentication. So we go in with our password, and the next thing is we're being prompted to set up more information. Well, we're going to set up our second factor method. So I'm going to click next on there. And we could use the Microsoft Authenticator, but here we've got the option to use a different Authenticator app. And that's what I'm going to go for. go next on there, and now we have a QR code to scan. Now this is using top TP or time-based one-time password, and if I say I can't scan the image, what it does is it gives me the account name to use and also the secret key. But I'm going to scan this image, and what I'm going to do is scan the image with a piece of software from Yubico, and this is the Yubico Authenticator, and it's telling me to insert my Yubico key. So I'm going to insert that, and the only use of that key in this particular scenario is to store the time-based one-time password information such as the secret and the account name. So I've now inserted my key, and I'm going to go here to add an account, and I could add an account and supply the secret key and the account name. I can do that, but a nice feature of this is it actually allows me to scan the QR code. It'll do a screen scrape and scan the QR code, and if we have a look at the secret, we'll see that the secret is already entered for me. It's the same value that is over here. Okay, so we go next on here. Oh, we save that first of all, and then the account's been added. We go next, and what it's asking me to do is enter the actual time code. So we're going to put that in, and next on there, and that was successful. The authenticator set up, we're done, and we're into the application, and we're showing password and MFA. So there you are. That's setting up a software-based oath token. Welcome to this section on the voice call method. Once again, I'm in the Authentication Method Policies. We go down to the particular method we're interested in here, and you'll see that it is currently not enabled. I could enable it, but the problem is I will not be able to save that enablement because this is not a paid for subscription. So I'm going to give you the experience of this using my corporate account. But meanwhile, if we look at configure, we can see that mobile phone calls are always allowed, but I can also include a phone call to an office phone. Let's go and experience this. So I'm going to go into my account, and I'm going to go into my account using my corporate information. So we'll sign in here. And what you'll see, it's actually asking for me to approve the sign-in request. Well, I'm going to say I can't use my Microsoft Authenticator right now. And then I've got a number of other options. And I'm going to do a call. So in a second, my phone should ring.
This is Microsoft sign-in system. If you are trying to sign in, press the hash key to finish signing in. Your sign-in was successfully verified. Goodbye.
And that's it. So I'm actually successfully signed in. So there we are. That is the voice call method. Welcome to this section on email OTP. Email OTP can be used for self-service password reset, which I will be showing in this section. And in my next section, I will show how it can be used for B2B or guest access. So let's start off in Authentication Method Policies, go down to Email OTP, and what we can see, it's enabled, and it's enabled for a particular group. And I have one user in that group, and that is Sam. Now, if we look at configuration, we'll see that there is a configuration setting for email OTP for guest users or B2B users. I'll come back to that in the next section. Let's have a look at password reset, because that's where we'll be using it. So at the moment, if I look at, there's my group, Auth OTP for SSPR, and Sam is in that group. And if we look at the authentication methods, there are no methods set here. So if you remember, what we've got is, this is a legacy policy, and we're doing everything in the Authentication Method Policies. That's the new policies. So let's actually have a look at Sam's experience. So I'm going to go in here to sign into my account as Sam. So we go to my account and we need to sign in with a different user, and I'm going to go in here with Sam, and this will get really confusing because what we'll do is we'll get an error message, and the reason being that we got an error message is there are persistent cookies which remember where we were the last time. So I'm going to go out of that and I'm going to go back in as Sam now, and it's deleted the persistent cookies because of the error message. So I'm logging in as Sam and it's saying more information required. So we go next on that. And what it's asking for is email. So I'm going to put that in there. So we're going to put Sam's email. Okay, this is not her corporate email. This is for password reset. So if you can't get into a corporate account, obviously you don't want your corporate email in here. So next on there, and we've just sent a code to Sam. Now we're going to have to go and get that code, and she's got this set up here on her inbox. So I'm going to do a send and receive on here, and there we are. We've got the code. I'm going to grab that code, and I'm going to switch back to put that code in there, which is basically proving that she owns the email address. So an email was successfully registered. Okay, let's go done on that and then close, and that's effectively signed Sam off. So we'll go back in again and to my account. Oh, and it seems to have remembered that cookie again, but let's go sign in as another user. We're going to go to Sam, and I'm going to say, I forgot my password. So what Sam needs to do is she needs to put in the captcha. And what's happened is we're going to receive an email. So we just say yes to that. We'll go back into our email, do a send and receive, and we should have got an email, which we have. We've got a code to go with it, so we just grab that code back into the self-service password reset sequence, and next on there, and it's asking us to put in a new password for Sam. Well, I don't want to change that, so I'm just going to cancel out. So that is email OTP for self-service password reset. Welcome to this section on email OTP for guest users. When you invite someone into your directory, they come in as a guest. They're not authenticated by your directory, they're authenticated by an external directory, such as if you bring someone in from another Azure AD, they'll be authenticated by the other Azure AD. If you bring someone in with a Microsoft account, such as an Outlook account, they will be authenticated by Microsoft. If you bring someone in from a Gmail account, there could be a direct federation that your tenant set up with Gmail, in which case Google will authenticate them. The same with Facebook. You could have set up a direct federation with Facebook, and then Facebook would authenticate them. When dealing with other organizations, you could set up a direct federation. That's an organization that does not have an Azure AD. So we could set up a direct federation with them, and they would be responsible for authenticating them. But sometimes you invite someone in using an email alias, and they don't have a source directory that they can be authenticated against, or you haven't set up a federation with that source directory. In that case, email OTP is used, which is a one-time passcode which is emailed to the user that is authenticating. I can spend a lot of time on this, and I will do a detailed B2B or guest user video in the future. But for now, what I'd like to do is actually look at this under Authentication Method Policies. So we're coming in and we're going to go down to the email OTP and we're going to go to configure. And that's where we enable this behavior so that we can actually authenticate a user by sending them a one-time passcode. Right, it's enabled in this situation. So what I'd like to do is experience it for my particular external user. But before I do that, what I want to do is actually turn off MFA for my particular application. So I'm going to come in here, and this is there's my app. I've got MFA for all users when always. I'm just going to turn that off for the moment. So we're going to do that. Now let's go and have the experience. Now our external user is Peter, and we're going to go to OIDC v1 as Peter. And I think I've got it in my buffer. Oops, no, yes I have. There we go. But I didn't delete that out first of all. So we're going as Peter, and we go next on that. And what it's done is sent Peter a code. Because Peter doesn't meet the criteria of being in another Azure AD, being in a directory which is federated with our tenant, using a Microsoft account. So a code's been sent to Peter. So let's go across to Peter's email, and we're going to use my email over here that has absolutely everybody in it. And well, it has everybody that doesn't have a direct Azure AD account, and there's the code that's been sent. So I'm going to grab that code and I'm going to go back over here, enter the code and sign in. And what we'll see is we've actually signed in using OTP. So our authentication methods reference is showing OTP. And that's it. As I say, I will do a video on B2B in detail. Welcome to this section on certificate-based authentication. As always, we're starting off in Authentication Methods Policies, and we're going to the certificate-based authentication settings. We can see it's enabled, and it's targeted at the auth-cert-auth group. And you'll also notice that it can be targeted at a user. Well, you can't do that anymore. You used to be able to target a user prior to the latest updates, but now Microsoft has said, okay, you can only target to a group. However, if you previously target to a user, it respects those settings and will show them. If I look at configuration, we can see that I can treat a certificate as single factor or multi-factor. I've got it set for single factor, except I've got a rule here which says if the policy OID, that's the policy OID actually in the certificate, is 1, 2, 3, 4, then multi-factor is the protection level. We've also got user bindings. There's a number of things we need to do to set up certificate-based authentication. And I'll show you that in another video. I'll also show you how we bring in the certificate authority into Azure AD, because that needs to be registered. I'll also show you some tips and tricks about creating certificates for testing with multiple users. But let's go over and experience this now as a user. So I'm coming over and going to my OIDC v1 application. Remember, MFA is off for the moment, so I'm signing in with OpenID, and I'm going to sign in as Tina. Okay, and I'm going to use another way of signing in rather than using a password, and I'm going to use a certificate. And the certificates are actually in the local certificate store. The certificate store is actually owned by John, but I've added some certificates for Tina. Again, in my other video, I'll show you how to do that. Let's sign in with first factor as Tina. And we can see that the AMR claim, which is remember, is the Authentication Methods reference claim, is set to RSA. So it means we signed on with some cryptographic method. Well, what's more cryptographic than a certificate? Let's go and close that off. what I want to do is actually turn on MFA for the application again. So conditional access, and what we're looking for down here is our policy, and we're going to turn on multi-factor. So now we've turned on multi-factor for all the users using our application, which is XTS OIDC v1. So let's go and experience it again. And over we come, and we sign in, and we're going to sign in as Tina with a first factor. And so we're going to go first factor on Tina. And despite the fact that Tina does have the capability of providing a second factor, it says multi-factor authentication is required and the credential used is not supported. So we cannot use a certificate for multi-factor unless it has been marked as a multi-factor certificate. So let's try that again. And we'll go in again as Tina, and we're going to this time choose her strong certificate. So if we look here, we've got this strong cert, and if we look, we are now in with the RSA and MFA. So that's certificate-based authentication in action. Welcome to this section on adding oath hardware tokens and security questions. Now, if you've been following through all of this video, you'll know that both hardware tokens and security questions are currently not handled by the Authentication Methods Policies. This is February 2023. By the time you watch this video, they may already be included in these policies. But for now, let's take a look. So I'm going to go off and experience this from a user's perspective. There's nothing to be done in the Authentication Method Policy section. So I'm going to go across to OIDC v2, and I'm going to sign in with OpenID, and I'm going to sign in as my user Tom. And it says, oh, more information required. So I click on next. And it says success, great job, you've successfully set up your security information. Choose done. So I choose done, and I'm actually in a loop. Now let's have a look at my account. And of course, Tom is already logged in, so we're going in with SSO to my account. We look at the security information, and there are currently no methods available for Tom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and set up a hardware key for Tom. So let's actually go and do that. So we need to close off this. And where I go to set that up is I go to multi-factor authentication. I go to the oath tokens, and I have to upload a CSV file. We'll see the format of that in a moment. So I'm going to go to upload, and I'm going to upload one just for Tom. I've actually got multiple CSV files that I could upload. But before I do that, let's actually have a look at that. So I'm going to open up this particular CSV file here, and we'll just edit that. And we'll have a look inside to see what's inside. What we've got is a UPN, a serial number, a secret key, time interval, manufacturer, and model. So the name is v-tom. That's the serial number of the key, not the serial number of my key. I've made it up. That's the secret for my key. Again, I've made that one up. The time interval, which is the time it takes before it rolls over with another number, is 60 seconds. It's OTP, and I'm using a C200 key, which happens to be from Feitang. So let's carry on and actually upload the correct file for Tom, which is that one. Okay, and that will whirl away. The file will upload, and then we can refresh it, and we should see that he actually has, it's sort of processing the file. And there it is. And what I can do now is I can activate this token. Now, it's a hardware token, so I need to press the key on the hardware token, and I go 358683, which is the number of the token. And we can OK that, and it should verify. Okay, so now we have provisioned an oath token to Tom. Okay, but it's not going to work yet. What we need to do is go to the legacy policies. So we need to go into multi-factor authentication, and we need to go to additional cloud-based. And what we're looking for here is verification code for mobile apps and hardware token. So I'm going to save that change. And while we're in the process, let's go and look at the one other legacy policy, which is password reset. And I'm going to go to authentication methods, and I'm going to set up security questions. Okay, so that's going to be for everybody who is in we'll just save that first, who is in the auth OTP for SSPR group. So that's, they will now get the ability to set up security questions. And if you remember, we set up for Sam Smith, we had OTP for SSPR for Sam Smith. So now she's in that group, she should be able to set up her security questions as well. Okay, now don't be surprised if this takes a little bit of time to ripple through so that we can see it. I've seen it take 10 minutes before this happens. Through the power of video, imagine 10 minutes has gone. Well, that was a quick 10 minutes. So let's go straight to our app that requires MFA. And we'll sign in as Tom and supply the password. And now it's asking me to enter a code. I shall get a code. So 708042. And that's verified in. And we can see we've got password and MFA. And if we now look at my account for Tom, and we look at security information here, what we should find is he's got the hardware token which has been added for him, and he could delete it if he wanted to, and there's a little bit more information that's available to him. Okay, let's close that off and let's go in here, as this time we're going to go to my account and we're going to go as Sam, who is set up for Self-Service-Password-Reset. So if we look at her security information, we got email. Let's have a look at adding a method and choose a method. We can go for security questions. Now, I've hidden the last bit on there because that is something currently under NDA, and I've only got it because I'm in the private preview of this program. So I'm going to add security questions for Sam, and I can add those in. Welcome to this section on Administrator SSPR policy. Administrators are always enabled to do self-service reset. Now, our global administrator, v-admin, has no administration policies actually set up for her. Let's go and have a look at her experience. So I'm going to go into Google Chrome, and I'm going to select my account, and I'm going to sign in as my administrator. And if we look at security information, what we can see is that she can add various methods for authentication. And you go, hang on a minute, I didn't set any policies. Well, what we need to do is actually look at the password reset, and we see down here administrator policy, and we can see that an administrator is already set up for various methods. Now, that, I am told, in the future will end up inside the Authentication Method Policies settings. But for the moment, remember, it's February 2023, there is no change. I hope you've learned about authentication method policies and all the different ways you can sign in. Don't forget to add to your diary the planned depreciation of the legacy MFA and Self-Service-Password-Reset policies. That's January 2024. If you've enjoyed the video and want more technical content from me, then please subscribe. That's really important to me. Click the bell for notifications if that's what you need, and leave a comment. Let me know what you liked about the video, what you didn't like about the video, and also what content you'd like to hear from me in the future. I hope to see you again in the cloud. Thanks for watching my channel. Subscribe for more free training. You might like to join me for my Identity Masterclass. Hopefully, see you soon.